Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, this video is back. I have another card fight Vanguard deck profile. So if you guys enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. And let's get one started. Today we have Narukami Dungaree deck profile. So Dungaree, triple drive, 17k base, double critical, swinger on first grade 3 turn. Yes, because that's what your opponent wants to hear. Yes, I swing at Vanguard with 17, triple drive, double critical face on first grade 3 turn with nothing to do with the skill at no cost for no apparent reason. Oh, okay, the 17k ends on your turn? Well, cool, I can just rush you. Wait, no, wait, the 17k doesn't end on your turn? It's permanent? What are you referring to? Yes, everyone's favorite card that will inevitably break the game. For now, it doesn't, but we all know it will, so before Bushy gets a ban list on it, let's go ahead and start this. Of course, all this was a bit. I don't think Bushy's actually going to ban it. If they do, I want to hear a really good reason. I could think of one good reason, but I don't think it's a good enough reason to ban it. So let's go ahead and get this deck profile started, shall we? First up, our starter for today is Harbinger Dracokid. Grade 0, boost, 10k shield, 6k base. Auto, when it's wrote upon, draw a card, and then if your opponent's Vanguards are grade 1 or greater, put a quick shield ticket to your hand. Same starter ability, nothing too special about it. You get a draw, you get a quick shield. The reason why this is the starter here is because I've been playing Zero recently. We just had the Narukami, or we are still in the Narukami event, and I've been dying to that stupid Harbinger Dracokid because that stupid 3k every time something gets bound has been the sole reason why I keep dying to the goddamn AI. Why, goddammit, why do you keep sacking triggers and why do you keep banning my shit? Either way, Harbinger is just a nice starter, standard starter ability though, but he's like my favorite one in terms of art, so let's go for him. Trigger-wise, we run 4, draw PG, and Wyvern guard Guld. 5k base, 0 show, grade 0 with boost, draw trigger, continue sentinel. You have 4 sentinels in your deck. Auto guard, when placed, discard a card from your hand when one of these cannot be hit to battle. Okay, here's what you can do. You could run 4 crit, 8 front in this deck, like I think you can do. Or you can do what I do and run 4 draw PG and 8 front. Here's why. This is an Accel deck. You still want hand cards to call rear guards, even if your Vanguard's threatening as fuck. And if you're thinking that discarding cards for a PG is bad, remember, you have triple drive. Before, it was just discard your drive check if you drive check to draw PG. I mean, unless technically speaking, the draw PG was in the drive check, then you draw 3 cards. But in this case, it is now discard your drive check, but you get to keep a card. So 4 copies of Wyvern guard Guld. 8 fronts in Zephyr Kid, Hayate, and Dragon Dancer Catharina. Yeah, you want, because the Vanguard's already pressuring. Like, they're gonna, you would normally PG the Vanguard anyways, or like 2 to pass it. But when your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive and and a 2 crit base, they're gonna fucking either PG or they're gonna go no pass. I mean, a lot of hand cards are gonna get dropped. So you might as well like front trigger the hell out of them to make it harder for them to guard, or just or you could just run crits in this one and then make your rear guards more powerful. Either way, I do think 8 fronts is the way to go, but it's up to you what this what the Sentinel will be. And then we have 4 heals and Worm Toxin Eradicator Seibo. We all know why I don't like Heal Guardians, but if I need to go over it again, I don't like Heal Guardians because they're very detrimental to my style. I like to go to early damage, and if I don't have my main grade 3, I will guard before I get to grade 3. The problem with this is Heal Guardians have guard, which means I might not go to the high damage I want to early. And because Heal Guardians have skills that activate when you are not at grade 3, it can also decrease my chance of also taking more damage. So like, Heal Guardians are very detrimental to my thing. I would, if they weren't grade 3s, if they were any other grade, I would take them immediately. But they are not. And that 5k shield makes a huge difference in the very long run with my playstyle. If you want to run Heal Guardians, go ahead. They're not bad. They are perfectly fine. They just don't work for me. If you're a person like me, don't run Heal Guardians. I'm going to save the time now and tell you that they don't work for you if they don't work for me, if we play the same way. But if you play differently than me, run Heal Guardians. It is perfectly fine to run Heal Guardians. And then we move on to grade 1s. 3 copies of Djinn of the 100 Thunderclaps. Okay, I run this solely because of, like, 1, its skill is actually good in this deck, but then 2, I just love its name because it reminds me of, for some reason, this reminds me of, like, A Million Hands from Inazuma 11, and we all know how much I like that one. So grade 1 boost, 10k shield, 7k base at 3 copies. Could use rear guard during your turn if your opponent's damage on those 4 or more cards gets plus 10. Okay, this is an Accel deck where your Vanguard has a double critical base. If your opponent doesn't get pushed to 4 damage by the end of your first grade 3 turn, either you're doing something wrong or your opponent is cock blocking you at the best of their extent. Which in that case, I'm gonna question, why are you playing against my friend Mandala? He's the only one that knows how to cock block that well. 3 copies of 100 Djinn because this is a really easy to get 17k base in this deck. Like, either they guard and use up their entire hand blocking this, or boys a 17k base during 95% of the game. 4 copies of Mighty Bolt Dragoon, AK base 10k shield, grade 1 with boost, continues rear guard during your turn. If any player's card was bound this turn, gets +5. Okay, Dungaree gets you a free bind during the battle phase, so that's an immediate +5, which is really nice. And Auto Vanner Rear, when placed from hand, look at top 5, reveal to 1 grade 3 from one of them, put it to your hand and shuffle your deck. If you put a card, you gotta discard 1. So really easy look for the top 5 for a grade 3. You obviously want to search Dungaree. If you gotta search your backup, you gotta search your backup, but that's still fine. And easy to get 13k base in the deck. So all around, really nice grade 1, 4 of. And then next up we have our last grade 1 and our main grade 1 of the deck, Exorcist Mage Mimi, or Miu Miu, I believe. Grade 1, boost for 10k shield, AK base. Auto, when it's rode upon, look at the top card of your deck, bind it, or put it back at the top. So you get to look, and this is just Ease Rod now, but for free. If you don't remember what Ease Rod does from D, it's when it's placed, Soul Blast 1, look at the top card of your deck and call it to the same column as it, or keep it at the top. This one is a free, when it's rode upon, look at the top card, either keep it there if it's you can keep it there regardless if it's a trigger or not, but you'll most likely keep it there if it is a trigger, or just bind it so you can use it later for Dungaree, so that's a really good ability. And then act rear guard once per turn. If your opponent's Vanguard is a grade 2 or greater, Soul Blast 1, bind a hand card, draw a card. So you don't even have to wait for them to be at grade 3 for this. You could grade 1 rush them, or technically speaking, grade 2 rush them, still get a Soul Blast, bind a card, and you draw a card. Miu Miu is honestly a really good card because she recycles your hand, gets you bound cards, and because Dungaree and the other Exorcist Mage don't cost anything for the skills to go off, Miu Miu is just a really good card to have, so 4 of. And then on to grade 2s. 2 copies of Turning Bass Dragon. Grade 2, intercept 5k shield, 9k base. Auto rear guard when it attacks if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater. Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's front rear guards and bind it. Okay, Dungaree does nothing with your opponent's bind zone, but it's at least worth using to, get rid of an opponent's unit just because, who doesn't want to get rid of an opponent's grade 2 unit? It's just, or technically, well, yeah, it could most likely be a grade 2, but, just a free bind, and like I said earlier, nothing else in this deck costs Soul Blast besides Miu Miu, just a really easy card to pull off. 2 copies. 4 copies of what is inherently one of the best cards in this deck, Dragon Knight Zubayr. 9k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto rear guard when played, bind one of your rear guards, so when you place it on rear, you gotta bind someone, even if it's itself, and continues rear guard during your turn. This unit gets +10. So I think I think this card was released a while ago, and I think a lot of people assumed Dungaree was coming because Dungaree involves your own bind zone, but I believe it was released along with Vanquisher. I don't think this was played in many Vanquisher builds because at least I didn't play it, and it didn't really seem that prominent in Vanquisher builds. In Dungaree, however, this is a card that can get you a bind for free and is a 19k base during your turn, without any cost having to be paid for it. This card is bullshit. This thing is very annoying to stare down, especially when Dungaree is staring you down as well. 4 of. 4 copies of Dragon Dancer Barca, 9k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto rear guard at the end of the battle attack if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater. Soul Blast 1, bind a card from your hand card, draw, and choose one of your opponent's back or rear guard circles, and choose one of your opponent's back or rear guards and move it to an open from a rear guard circle. So, once more, okay, well, there are a total of 3 Soul Blasters in this deck. This time I know for sure those are the last Soul Blasters. Let me just make sure of that before I continue that statement. So yes, this is the only last Soul Blaster in the deck, and it's really easy. You get a draw, you get a bind card, and you can put something from your opponent's back row that they're trying to protect into the front row. Either way, it's a decent card, and I do definitely suggest running it at 4 of because, it gives you options just in case you don't have one of your other 2 Soul Blasters. To be fair, this is just discard fodder, and this one you use if you can't get any other binders. But still, it's still a good card, though. So all around, Barca's really nice. 4 of. And then our last grade 2 is 4 copies of Exorcist Mage Ren Ren. Grade 2, intercept 5k shield, 9k base. Auto when it's rode upon, counterblast 1, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose to one from one of them, bind it, and put the other and put the rest in the hand. So either you bind, it says choose one of the cards, so you have to choose one. But either way, pretty good. It's just a when rode upon, but it gets you 2 binds, it gets you 1 bind and a hand card, and act rear guard once per turn, counterblast 1, and bind the top card of your deck. For each grade of the bound card for the cost, it gets +5 for the turn. If you bound a grade 0, draw a card. So you bind a grade 1, this is a 14k base, grade 2, 19, grade 3, 24 for the turn, or if you bound a grade 0, you at least get a draw out of it, so it's really nice because it gets you a bound card. It's only counterblast, which isn't really that bad in this deck because there's only a grand total of 2 counterblasters, and this is one of them. So basically you have free range over your counterblast and he could possibly net you a hand card. So 4 copies of Ren Ren because he, whatever it is really good. And then on to our grade 3s. 4 copies of Djinn of Thunderous Shock. Bet none of you ever expected this to be ran in a deck. Grade 3, Twin Drive, 12k base. I mean, it might be ran in Vanquish, I don't know. Auto Vanguard or Rear Guard. When it attacks, counterbots 1 and bind another Rear Guard. Draw a card and this unit gets plus 10 for the turn. Okay. The bind another Rear Guard is not going to come in helpful with Dungaree on the turn that you use it because Dungaree works when it swings, so unless you swing with us first, it's not going to be that helpful. But the fact that he can gain 10k off of just swinging is really good. Once more, this is the only other counter blaster in the deck with Ren Rens, which means you have basically free range over your counter blast, still nets you a bind, still get you a hand card to replace the rear guard you bound, and the boy swing for 22. All around really good, 4 copies. And then our last unit in the deck and our last card in the main deck is Sealed Demon Dragon Dungaree! Grade 3, Triple Drive, Accel Gift, 17k base, double critical. Okay, so first off, hard to hit without boosters. Second off, this thing you do not want to pass because it will most likely see a trigger. And then third off, double critical. This thing has a constant force 2 on it for some reason. So, auto Vanguard at the start of your battle phase. If your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, you may bind the top card of your deck. Okay, don't go first with this deck because if you go first with this deck, this might depending on how much you can get bound really quickly, it might end up screwing you over if you go first, just because, let's read his second skill first before I explain. Auto Vanguard or Rear Guard when it swings. Oh, it's unfortunate that has to be on rear, but still. Oh, yeah, but that's another thing I forgot to mention. Those stats because those stats aren't related to skills, you can just call this to Rear Guard and it would have those stats. Anyways, when it attacks, put all the cards from your bind zone into your drop. Perform all the following according to the number of cards put. 2 or less, it gets minus 10k power, minus 1 crit, and minus 2 drives for the turn. So if you only put 2 or less of them, then this becomes a 7k base, 1 critical, 1 drive for the turn, thankfully. 4 or more, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and binds it, and 5 or more, you choose up to 3 cards from your drop zone and return the deck and shuffle. So in case you're going hyperbind, you can send your stuff back. Basically, what you need to do from this is just get 3 cards in bind zone and you're good. Anyways, so the bad thing about Dungaree here is that if you go first and you only can... So your ride line guarantees you, more or less, if you get Ren Ren and Miu Miu into hand, you essentially have a guarantee... Assuming that you can ride both of them, you get 2 binds off. But if you're going first, because you're not going to bind the top card of your deck, you're going to need 1 more so that you don't have to do the 2 or less, because if you do 2 or less, which you at least have 2 right now, your power goes down. And the sad part is you can't just call 2 of these on the board at the same time, because since it's on swing on Van or Rear, that means the first one is going to have better numbers, and then the second one's just going to have the 7k base single critical, which is going to be kind of sad, but if it's something that if you just want to call it just to call it and make it so that they can't swing into your rear guards because 17k base is just funny, yeah, you could go for it. Either way, Dungaree hits really hard. I mean, you only need the 3 bound cards, but here's the thing, if just not minus anything, but if you go for 4, even though it's just binding a single hand card, binding a hand card against a 17k double critical beat stick that has triple drive does a lot. I've been on the receiving end of that. Having to bind 1 hand card was the most heart racing inducing thing I ever had to do, because I was so worried of, God, I'm at 2 damage. What if he I knew they didn't have crits because they were using this build, but what happens if they see a bunch of triggers because they had 4 attack? I was just so fucking worried at all times. And granted, I was playing 0, so I could at least nullify the critical aspect, but God, I was terrified the entire time. And then the 5 or more, sending 3 cards back to deck. The funny thing is, it doesn't say normal units, it just says cards, so you could just send triggers back. So all around, Dungaree's really good. Net you triggers, gets rid of hand cards. While his skill doesn't seem insane on its own, or at least to me it didn't seem insane the first time I read it, it's really good. It's just very simplistic. And as for Dungaree himself, stat-wise, hands down, best card that has came out of anything from V, and we're going by stats, because it obviously has the best stats in V. 4 copies of Amazing Grade 3, just good. And then we have our Accel gift, 6 Accel 6 Accel 2s, because I don't imagine your opponent living long enough for you to do a lot of these. So they both share a similar thing. Accel 2 and Accel 1, when acquired, they go to new front or rear guard circle. It goes top left and top right, and you alternate between the two. So the difference is, Accel 1, the unit on that new front or rear guard circle gets plus 10 during your turn. Accel 2, when the circle is placed, you get to draw a card, and then the unit on that circle gets plus 5 during your turn. So this one gives less power, but in all fairness, when you have this backing you up, and then you have 8 fronts where this thing is almost guaranteed to draft check one of them, and they're now guaranteed to either PG the Vanguard or drop at least 3 hand cards so this thing doesn't hit. Yeah, I think Accel 2 is the way to go. If you go Accel 1, you just want to punish your opponent. Yeah, so, you know, I think go Accel 2, but if you really want to kill your opponent quickly, go the Accel 1 route, just because this deck can capably kill someone. And then the Quick Shield. When one of your units attacks, it gets plus 5k for the battle. Standard Quick Shield, another special route. Also, something I just want to quickly mention about Dungaree. Yes, it says all, so like I said earlier, you cannot just like strategically bind a certain number of cards, so you can swing with both Dungarees on board so neither of them loses power. No, you have, whatever one swings first, you have to lose all, which is unfortunately the mandatory effect. But at the same time, I want it to be clear, wait, fuck, I had a point. Dang, I had such a good point, and then I forgot. Oh yeah, its skill is not restricted to, the first skill is restricted to grade 3, but the second skill isn't, which means you can just do all of that while they're at grade 2. Yeah, so that's all I want to say. And that's it for the deck, so I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, Dungaree, it is very scary and very powerful. Like, you do not expect a 17k base. Yes, I keep going to because like that's very important. 17k base double critical triple drive. When you think about it in the long, like when you try to overall think about it without playing the game, then yeah, okay, a 17k base double critical triple drive isn't that scary. But then when you actively play against Dungaree and you like are in the moment, you realize, God, that's a lot to consider, especially their drive check, the board they can make, the amount of hand cards you have to keep in hand so that you don't die to a possible triple trigger. All around, Dungaree is like scary in the moment, and it's definitely one of the decks that I think Bushy has. Like, this is one of the ones where even though it has 3 cards going into it for the collection sets, those 3 cards are really good. Like, witches were the sacrificial meal. Witches, and when I say witches, I mean Shadow Paladin witches. Witches dropped the ball because, like, they only had the 3 hand cards. They had no synergy with other witches. But they were, like, they were the starting point to see what Bushy could do with the 3 cards per set thing. And now everyone in this set, suddenly, even with just 3 cards, the new archetypes, really good. Dungaree, you take 1 card from you take 1 or 2 cards from, Vanquisher, suddenly Dungaree becomes extremely terrifying really quickly. So, all around Dungaree's really good. Hits numbers, has that pressure with criticals, has triple drive, gets you a good amount of hand cards. Very terrifying to play against, and very fun playing with. So, hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Patreon, join Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all next one. Don't forget to stand up your Vanguards.